Interesting perspective. Interesting perspective. So then let's go back to then the security awareness, because I think that there is kind of a little bit of a tie in here, right, to security awareness, right? So if we kind of go back over to the Twitter hack, right, this is a really good article, right? Shows how major cyber shows one of the major cybersecurity vulnerabilities is employees. Now, Keith, you've done a lot in your career with education and awareness. Um, I think, keep me honest here, I think you spent a good amount of time, some of your first, years as an incident responder, working like a phishing, kind of mailbox and working closely with users and things like that. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, 100%. Yep, my first year was in that fishing box, in that dirty box.
what, so then are employees a vulnerability?
Okay, so both employees are trusted, users are trusted to be on a network, right, and operate on that network. Why shouldn't they be trained? I mean, we train people to drive cars. If you're going to go skydiving, you've got to get trained to do it, right? Why are we not training users?
But we do train users. We do have, annual training that users have to take every year. You're acting like corporations don't have that. What are you suggesting?
I think corporations, companies, organizations, whoever, I think they can probably turn it up a little bit. And it really comes down to program maturity. And program maturity, by that I mean, are you doing it just to check a box, or are you measuring? Are you taking these metrics and adjusting and tweaking and targeting highly susceptible groups?
What is a highly susceptible group?
I'd say a new user.
Okay, why is that? So if I've got 25 years of cybersecurity experience, right? Or I've got 25 years of corporate experience even, right? And I've probably had, probably 25 years worth of user awareness training. Are you telling me that if I come into your organization for the first time, I got to see the same old training that I've seen, 25 different times at different companies?
You might get an updated version, but what I'm talking about when I say new users too, I'm thinking of the people straight out of college that aren't into or aren't used to corporate email. Or how about the intern who has never been exposed to corporate email, who doesn't know what a phishing email looks like, who's just so eager and so gung ho that they take every single email that comes in as the gospel. Those are the new users I'm thinking of.
So new users are highly susceptible. What's another highly susceptible group?
How about the folks that are working in finance, the folks that are taking those payments and are getting those consistent invoices. They've got a schedule to keep. They're seeing hundreds of these perhaps a week. I don't know. I don't know the different volumes for different companies, but I'm just throwing a number out there. Um, they might get so numb to seeing these emails that they're not going to catch the sudden nuances, the subtle nuances. Like maybe it's coming from a Gmail domain versus abc.com, who they're doing business with.
So let me ask you this then. So a couple streams ago, right? A couple streams ago, we talked about the Know Before organization, right? Which I know that I don't know if you've heard of Know Before or not, right? But they try to provide like a lot of free user awareness and training and whatnot. Do you think we have a problem where we're not taking user awareness and pulling it away from the corporate environment maybe, and trying to have more user awareness in our day-to-day lives? Should we have more, hey, here's your commercial on cybersecurity user awareness at home, here's your annual test. I joked about this a couple of streams ago. Should we license people to use the internet, right?
I mean, that's an interesting idea. I think you've got an uphill climb there.
Why?
Well, because we already have precedent.
So
You can't.
because
You
I've
can't
already
put,
put a because I've already put a phone in my kid's hands, and let him surf the internet. We can't go back then now and say, well, look, you need to get retrained on how to use that device.
well, licensing and retraining is two different things.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm splitting hairs here. Yeah, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You're not going to get to the licensing part. That's not. I don't see that happening. Um, I'm neutral on it. That's one I have to think about a little bit more before I want to make a statement on it. But I think that the user awareness or security awareness training, it needs to be more than just posters on the wall.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
no. Go ahead. Go carry on with your thought.
It needs to be more than posters on the wall. As I said earlier, measured metrics, actionable metrics. I've seen a few security awareness programs, and I've seen peers talk to me about their security awareness programs at their companies. And the one thing that I find that the successful ones have in common is they have a structured program. There's a structured program. There's room for growth year over year. Like that program might not have this year, but next year it's going to have that. Or 2 years from now, we plan on doing this.
Okay, so then I got a question for you then on this. So for the users who watch this today on the stream live, or for folks who see this on YouTube later, I want the top 3 features out of you that a security awareness program has to have, and only 3. I want the top 3 features. So if they have to go to work tomorrow or Monday and implement 3 features in their security awareness program, what are 3 things they could do tomorrow to improve their security awareness program?
All right. You got to do self-phishing.
What's self-phishing? Explain that.
Self-phishing is when you have a team, or depending on the size of the company, a person sending out emails that look like they are malicious or suspicious. Okay, there's something about them. All right, and they send them out to the users. They're not malicious, and you want those users to submit them as phishing. You want those users to treat them like they are malicious, because the users don't know. They don't know if they're malicious or not. They don't know they're getting tested, but that needs to happen.
Okay,
And it needs to grow in complexity. You don't start with the level 10. You don't start with the level 10. You start with the level 1, 2, 3, and you gradually make it more and more complex.
Okay.
So there's your first one.
Okay, so first one, self-phishing. Self-phishing, if you don't have a self-phishing program, you got to have one of those. What's number 2?
Number 2, you need to track those. You need to track that self-phishing. Okay? So have a metrics program in place.
Okay.
So you can see where you're growing or where you're getting weaker.
What are some of the things you track on that metrics program? What are you looking for? What are some of the signs that you're looking for?
Repeat clickers. Who are the people that are clicking over and over and failing these self-phishing tests? Because they need more training.
Okay. So then what's number 3 then?
Number 3, I gave you the easy 2. Number 3, you ready for this? C-level buy-in.
And what exactly are you looking for from C-level buy-in?
You want your C-levels to support this, to be bought in, and to sign the checks, to get the tools, to get the headcount that's going to make this program run successfully.
So then, do you think a company like Twitter isn't doing that type of stuff?
Well, Twitter went wrong somewhere else, but we'll get to that in a minute. They have to. Company that size, absolutely. Company that visible and that size, yeah, they're doing security awareness.
I mean, and you and I have been part of organizations before, Keith, right? Security aware. I mean, there's a lot of organizations that are doing the three things that you're talking about doing, right? So why do we keep having people give up their credentials to phishing attacks? Why do we have people keep clicking on links?
Because we just talked about, there's varying levels of successful security awareness programs. I'm sure there's companies out there that are just doing it to check a box because it's required. That's why you keep getting people falling for phishing.
So then I guess this really kind of brings us then right to kind of this topic, right? Which is I think what you're really talking about here, right? Is that, almost every, or at least half of employees, right? Almost half of employees, right, make some mistake inside of an organization that has a cyber implication, right? That's really what we're talking about here. And so just some stats for folks, right, as they're going through and releasing this. Right? So there's a report here, right, that was talked about over the U.S. and U.K. employees, right, where they talk about, a quarter of employees confess to clicking on links in a phishing email at work. And then they've got some other ones in here, right, as well, where they talk about some other stuff that's going on here. Have you ever, let me ask you this one, Keith, have you ever worked a phishing incident for all your years of working the phishing mailbox, where you had an employee admit to you that they clicked on something in a phishing email?
Well, I'm not going to answer that, but what I will do is this. I will tell you that every single one of my peers at other organizations have told me that they have, like, oh, today so-and-so, and I asked them if they clicked, and yeah, they admitted it. Yeah. So, it happens. Happens.
So is your what's your knee-jerk reaction, right? You find that phishing email in that inbox, you talk to that user admits that they clicked on a message. Do you go to their supervisor and tell their supervisor they need to be fired?
No.
Why not? They could have caused the next Twitter. Why aren't they fired?
Because here's the deal. We're not the internet police. It's not our job to rain down discipline. You start going down that path and you put security in an adversarial position. I want to go the other way. I want people to not be afraid of security and not wonder, oh, what's going on in that room? Wow, there's the secret room where yeah, boy, I bet they're spying on our internet. No, we don't want that. And by doing something like that, you're putting somebody in an adversarial position.
But again, how do you compete? How do you, if the users are your front line of defense and they're opening every email that comes in, and I think this is a statistic, right, that we'll talk about as well, right, is the industry average for phishing campaigns, right, I think is anywhere from 11 to 20%, depending on, to your point, the maturity of their education awareness and phishing programs, right? So even if you got it down to 1% of your organization, and that 1% led to the next Twitter, how do we fix that problem? Do we discipline, or where's the carrot and the stick?
Well, how about more carrots? You need to put that in a security awareness budget. Gift cards. We're beyond stickers. We're beyond stickers and magnets.
So I mean, in full transparency, right? One of the financial companies that I worked for in the past, we did this, and it was very successful as well, right? I mean, the gift card idea is fantastic. So I in full transparency, I do fundamentally agree with you, but I'm going to totally be cynical, and I'm going to take the opposite side of this just for the sake of good conversation, right? And say, gift cards? Are you serious?
I'm 100% serious.
Like gift cards to where? Why gift cards? Why are gift cards a thing?
People like things. Okay? People like things. And if you incentivize them, they're going to be more careful, because they don't want to click on something that and infect their computer, the network. But B, if they do right, guess what? There's a possibility that they could earn a little cash on the side on top of their salary. I think that's, you got the carrot and the stick. Okay, so the carrot is the gift card. What's the alternative? Discipline. Okay, you failed this phishing test. Guess what? You're on probation. Second time they fail, all right, this is it. One more. People are going to be afraid, and they're not going to want to open anything or report anything.
So that brings up this is one I left for last because I wanted to know if it was going to trigger you, right? Is security awareness, right, the latest cybersecurity snake oil? Like, this is totally a clickbait title, but I love this clickbait title, and I wanted to bring this one up to you because everything you're talking about, if I'm a CISO, or somebody else, why am I not looking at this saying, God, you're trying to sell me more of this security awareness stuff? Users are the weakest link, employees are the weakest link inside of our network, right? Even if I got my security awareness was so awesome that I got it down to 1%, there's just no way that I'm going to be able to stop everything. So is cybersecurity awareness kind of this new snake oil?
I get real tired of hearing about that. Users are our biggest weakness. What if they're not the biggest weakness? What if they're our strongest sensors? Maybe flip the thinking here. But to your point, security awareness, it's not the latest snake oil. It's a necessity. And like I said before, it needs to go beyond posters and such. But I think security awareness programs need to mature almost somewhere in between your posters and, let's say, I'm just going to use the Security Plus certification as an example, okay? Somewhere in the middle there is where our users need to be trained up to that point. Because as technology keeps improving and getting more and more robust, more and more complicated, users' jobs are getting more and more complicated. We keep trying to say that we're making things easier, but they're getting more and more tools. They're getting access to more and more things. So yeah, we need to turn the dial up on the security awareness. And it can't be just your click through, oh, this is due in a month, I better just go ahead and get through it. I mean, yeah, we need to actually have them take a little test.
Do you truly think, I'm asking you this seriously, do you truly think that we're going to ever get to, a point with users, that we'll see 100% effectiveness, 100% blocking of phishing emails? Do you think we'll ever get there?
No, I do not think so. I believe we will not. Nothing's 100%. Nobody's 100%. One thing that, is a good idea I've heard floated around is security ambassadors. So, think of your marketing team or your sales team. What if they had one person on that team that maybe met with cybersecurity on, say, a quarterly or a monthly basis, and like, hey, here's some tips, and kind of walk them through, and they could bring that back to their teams. Maybe that could be an arm of security awareness. Just a thought.
So let me give you a chance to talk directly to a user in chat, right? So Steven Rosendahl in chat talked about your other example of taking your metrics, that you mentioned and brought up, and taking those to the C level and doing a cost benefit analysis. Either you or Steven, or this is, for Keith, if you want to talk directly to Steven, right? What type of metrics in your experience from dealing with user awareness do you think help you do that cost benefit analysis for a security awareness program?
Well, we did talk about the repeat clickers, but I'm going to try to boil this down with just real raw or real basic numbers here, so not to complicate things. But let's say that you have you have a group in on the other side of the world in EMEA. Let's just use 100. Okay, you're going to fish all 100 of them. All right, self-fish. 70 of them click. Okay, you fish them again the next month. 60 of them click. And so on and so forth. And you start seeing that improvement. Those are the type of metrics. You know, you can get even deeper. You can you can get into how long was it in the user's inbox before they clicked. Did they click all the way through, or did they just open the email and not click the link? Did they go to the link but not enter any credentials? I mean, it gets pretty deep, and you can get pretty granular depending on what program you use. So, I mean, there's a lot of them out there that can really help with that cost benefit analysis that you're referencing.
Okay. So then you struck a chord here with user awareness. We've got another chatter from Twitch, Minicant over on the Twitch side. He talked about users, being free sensors. It was a good point. Now he talks about informing them on present dangers. And one of the things he talked about was informing users on 0 days, 0 week emails and malicious campaigns and things like that. Do you think, it's kind of a two-part question that I think I would piggyback there with Minicant, right, is do you think that you could ever get a user to care about 0 days? And then the second one is, what about, mass distribution of content inside the organization?
Yeah. In regards to the 0 day question, I think people are naturally curious about cybersecurity. Okay, so if you could tell people what 0 day is, or what is that? Because 5, 6, 7 years ago, if someone said 0, I wouldn't have known what that meant. So, take away the 0 day name and just talk about, like, oh wow, there's this new email coming out that we haven't seen before, and it's spreading pretty quickly across our vertical or our industry. Yeah, I think people would get kind of excited. And in terms of how do you get that message out there? Well, I think maybe depending on the size of the organization, of course, here, you don't want to blast that on an email. I mean, you could, but that could cause confusion. You're going to get what's called a reporting loop, where users are going to report back, and then you're going to send back like this isn't malicious. Oh, but it is, and blah, blah, blah. So that's not going to be as helpful. One thing you could do is you could have an app, a corporate app, and on that corporate app, you could have users, use their watch, sign up for what they, or phone, whatever, and sign up for what they want. Let them pick and choose. All right. And one of the things they would sign up for is like phishing email alerts, or catch of the day. And it would come to their mobile device, and there it is. There's a nice image of what we're supposed to be looking for. Oh, wow. Gee, I think I got that today. So there's one way of doing it. That's just a thought.
So Minicant followed up with that, and he brings up a really good point, and I'll kind of ask this in the sake of banter, right? Is he talks about, the C-level is more security literate than regular users. They'll understand it if we get the message clean and proper. Do you think that it's then, a fallacy to think that we've oversaturated users with just how unprotected they are? Do you think that do you think employees have gone tone deaf to our messaging? Do you think that we're in a sky is falling type of scenario where, every time we come to them, we're coming them with just how bad the world is? I mean, is there any risk of that in talking to users and trying to educate them?
Well, I agree with you. I think that users can become tone deaf, but what you talked about to open the show, Garmin and Twitter, those kind of help remove some of that tone deafness. All a user has to do is turn on the news, and you're going to see the next corporation that's been hacked, the next user that's been compromised, the next ransom that's been paid. So if users are becoming tone deaf, that means they're not watching the news.
Do you, well, hold on, let me pick apart that one just a little bit. Let me pick apart with not just with you, with everybody else who's listening. We've got some good chats going on around this, and we may do some more segments on security awareness, because this seems to be, everybody loves to talk about this, right? Is, you know, it's easy to say, they're not tone deaf, if they're watching the news, but I've said this a couple streams ago, right? Is users haven't felt the pain of cyber, right? And I go back to my banking examples, right? Because the banks, because of FFIEC, because of the PCI guidelines, because of everything that's out there, they have, because of the regulation, right? They have been forced to think for users and compensate for users, not caring about their credit cards being stolen and things like that. And so as a result, when you go swipe your card somewhere, and it's a suspected fraudulent transaction, your account gets immediately locked down, you get a text notification and things like that. How can you say that, if a user sees Garmin and Twitter out there and go, gosh, they got hit with ransomware, I'm glad that didn't happen to me? How can you say that they're more aware of cyber events if they've never felt any impact from it? And again, if we go back to the Garmin article, right? I mean, if we look at the services that were impacted by Garmin, right, we're really only talking about, their Connect ones, their anything that connected from a a third party app or something like that. I think the FAA one with the aviation was really the worst of it. But when you got into your car and you turned on your GPS, right? Your GPS still told you where to go, right? You didn't have to worry about that, right? Your Google Maps still worked, your iPhone Maps still worked. So if a user doesn't feel anything, how can we say that it's in the news, therefore users should care about it?
So last year, I went to fill up my car with gas. My credit card didn't work. I went to another gas station, credit card didn't work. I went to a third gas station, credit card didn't work. I finally called my bank, and it was a weekend, so I got to the weekend help desk, and I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, well, we've seen some potentially fraudulent activity on your account. And I didn't do anything. There's nothing wrong with my card. There wasn't anything wrong with the purchases I made. It's just that's how tight things are. And that's all related to cybersecurity. They were afraid that, like, oh, we saw a couple small purchases.
But
So,
that's
yeah,
you're a cybersecurity dude. Think about your mom or your grandma, right, or somebody who's not in this space, right? They're never going to worry about money leaving their account because the banks have it taken care of. And this gets outside. We're not going to talk about scams or anything like that just yet, right? We're just talking about strictly credit card fraud, bank fraud and things like that, right? But if those protections were gone, if the banks didn't have to do that thinking for us ahead of time, right? And whenever their card got skimmed, an ATM scammer, they lost, $100, $200. While that's not a pleasant thought to think about, don't you think users would care more if they felt that burden?
if they got stung,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I believe that's true. That's a true statement. Yep. If a user got nicked, whether it be through home computer, like, oh yeah, look at this, I found this great KitchenAid mixer. Oh geez, it's only $35. Yeah, I think, come on. Yeah, if someone got nipped with that, yeah, they'd probably take security a little more serious.
So piggybacking on that, then I don't think, and this is cynical, Neil. For those who are watching, I have a very cynical personality sometimes. This is why I think we will continue to fail in the user awareness game. Because I don't think that, I think we're falling into the same trap as security professionals that the banks have fallen into, where we're trying to educate a user force that doesn't care about cybersecurity threats anyway, because the cybersecurity threats, to the folks who are talking in chat, which I think is fantastic, right? That we've got a lot of these opinions, right? Yes, I think that if we taught them how to protect themselves at home, then we could teach them how to protect themselves at work. And I've been with organizations that have taken that mentality, and it does have a tendency to drive those numbers down. But I think if we're not careful, what we'll run into is a scenario where we're thinking for the users as much time, especially if we think about automation, if we think about SOAR tools, if we think about, some of the things that we're doing in the SOC to, really protect networks and protect users and things like that, we could really run into a scenario where it doesn't sting for the user. And I'm not advocating for user pain by any stretch of the imagination, but it is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy or a double-edged sword, right? Where if the user doesn't feel any sting, do they actually care about it? And so